Hello quilting friends, my name is Pam Hultgren-Klein. Welcome to my sewing table. Today I am going to answer a question that several friends have been asking me about. When I am ready to finish my outside borders on a quilt, a table runner, placemats, I always use my easy angle in order to have perfect mitered corners. And friends have said, how did you do that? So today I'm going to use my easy angle and I'm going to show you how to do mitered corners the easy way.
As we begin putting borders onto our quilted project, I just want to show you that a mitered corner is simply a 45-degree angle, and our easy angle always gives us a perfect 45-degree angle. So as we begin to cut our borders, we're going to keep in mind the features of our easy angle. We know we have the vertical lines and the horizontal lines, and we have that wonderful little black flag that helps us with our seam allowance. So the border that I have planned for my placemat is 2.5 inches wide, unfinished. That means that when it is finished going around my placemat, it will be 2 inches. For right now, we need to begin by getting that perfect 45-degree angle cut at the beginning edge of my border. So my easy angle helps me with that because that always will be a perfect 45-degree angle on the easy angle. I see that little black flag, that also helps me because if I remember to always point my little black flag towards the outside border, I will get the angle cut correctly. And I know it's a trick. It's a trick for me too. But if I just remember, point the little black flag towards the outside border, will be good every time. So I'm going to lay my easy angle down on my border. The little black flag is pointing towards the outside border. And as I lay it down, I make sure that I see a horizontal line consistent with the edge of the border, and my point is right there. I'm going to hold it steady and I'm going to make a cut right like that. And now I have that first edge of the border ready to go to the placemat. The second thing I need to do then is to decide how long does that border need to be. With a placemat, fortunately, it's not horribly long. Once you start working with a big old quilt or even a fireside quilt, then you're going to be dealing with longer lengths. Doesn't matter, the formula will always be the same. The width of this placemat before the border is 13.5 inches. If you remember, this border is 2.5. So what I do, without worrying about finished edges, I think, okay, border 2.5 plus placemat 13.5. 2.5, 13.5, that's 16. Okay, then I'm going to have 2.5 on the other end. So 16 plus 2.5 is 18.5. I'll write that down for you so you remember, but that's the formula for how long this border strip needs to be. So I'm going to get out my easy rule and I'm going to go and make sure that the point, I'm actually going to slide this down just a tad. There we go. The point of my border is on 18.5. I'm going to go down to the other end and I'm just going to go ahead and cut a straight edge. I'm not even going to worry that it's not at a 45 yet. We're going to fix that in just a moment. Before we go to the sewing machine, I have a little trick to show you. I need to have a convenient way to know where to start. And the best thing I've found is to take the flat end of my easy angle, to lay it down on the edge of my placemat, the first place where I'm going to be sewing border. And if I lay the flat edge down, you will see that there's like a little corner of fabric there. What we're simply going to do is cut that corner off. And if I cut it off, then that little spot is going to be right where I start sewing. Here's my piece. for my border. And if I take my border piece that has our perfect 45-degree angle and I lay it down to match that angle that we just cut away, that little tiny part that we cut out right there, and we start sewing at the 1/4-inch spot, it will run perfectly, and we have the border placed in exactly the right spot. Now that I'm sitting at the sewing machine, I'm looking at my placemat and noticing where that little notched corner was that we just cut, and I'm going to take my border with the 45-degree angle, and I'm going to match the corner of the border. There we go. The corner of the border with that corner of the notch, and it gives me my starting place. So I'll put these two pieces together, and I am a fan of pins. So I personally am going to take a pin. Some people are so steady they may not need it. For me, I like a pin. So I'm going to pin that into a place. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I am going to sew down the side on the 1/4 inch. Now, as I begin, I do remember that the beginning of my seam should be a 1/4 inch in from that border edge. So roughly about right there. Some people will literally take their ruler, their easy angle, and measure and do a little pencil line. You can, but I have spotted it. I know I want to begin my needle down right at that 1/4 inch cross section right there. So we're going to take it to the machine. I'm going to put it under at that spot, bring my feed dog down, and away I go. When I get to the other end, I want to show you how I'm going to cut the other end of my border to make that perfect mitered corner. Now that we have sewn our 1/4 inch seam connecting our border with our placemat, I am ready to cut my mitered corner. So I'm going to actually take the placemat, flip it upside down so that the border is right side up. It's in the back, but it is right side up right now. All right, then I go get my easy angle. And if you remember, I mentioned to you that we always point the little black flag towards the biggest outside border of our border strip. All right, so the outside big border is way out here, pointing the black flag that way. And now I'm going to lay the easy angle down. And my friends, this is the big formula, shall we say, or the trick of the easy angle. This border is a 2.5 inch border. That means that I need my easy angle to lay horizontally at the 2.5 inch space. So look, there's the 2.5 inch line. It is matching the edge of the placemat, 2.5 inches. There's even a second place to check, 2.5 inches. All right. Now, when it is finished, this border will be 2 inches. So here's my 2 inch spot. I'm going to slide my vertical line to the 2 inch spot. If I have my vertical line at the 2 inch spot and my horizontal line at the 2.5 inch spot, I can cut that 45-degree angle and it will always be perfect. I'm going to check this one more time before I cut. My vertical line has 2 inches right there along that edge. My horizontal line says 2.5 because as an unfinished border, that piece was 2.5 inches. Hold it steady and cut. And I have the perfect 45-degree angle ready to make a mitered corner. We're ready to put on our second border. We cut the right angle on our second border the same way we cut the first, and we cut the length of this one so that it is the formula. Remember our secret little formula. The width of this placemat going this way is 9.5 inches. All right, we've got a 2.5 inch border on each side. So 2.5 and 2.5, that's 5. 5 plus 9.5 is 14.5. So I have cut this border piece at 14.5 inches from that point all the way down to the end. A flat edge on this end for now is just fine. We'll fix that at the cutting board in a few minutes. Now I'm ready to take this right angled piece and add it to this piece. Here's our piece that we had added first, and I'm going to kind of push it out of the way. There's our little notch on the placemat. I'll set my new piece of border on top of the placemat, right sides together. I want this angle to match that nifty little notch right there. Again, if I've got that notch matching and I have that top edge matching, I'm going to put a pin in place because I like to know that it's not going to wiggle on me when I get to the sewing machine. I'll take it over to my machine. I'm confident of my 1/4 inch. I'm going to let my dog feed down, and away I go, sewing on the second border strip around my placemat. It is time to sew our mitered corners. Here's how we do it. We're going to take right sides together in the border, fold them like that, folding them like that, and we're going to find the points of both border pieces and make sure our point matches just like that. And I am going to put a pin in there. I'm a pin fan. All right. Then in my case, I had 2 fabrics making the border. So I have a spot where I definitely want those. I'm going to get as close as I can. I want you to see this. I want those 2 fabrics to meet right there. It will help to make that mitered corner look so good. So I'm going to put another pin right there to make sure they stay together. And then at the end here, we'll keep the placemat fabric out of the way. We're going to bring the border fabric together just like that. I'm going to add a 3rd pin right there so that I know right where the seam should be and right where the seam should end. Okay, now with borders, anything 45-degree angle, you are working with a bias, but if you start point first into the feed dog, it will work so much better than if you would start at the flat end. So we're going to go point end first into the sewing machine. I'm going to double check my 1/4 inch seam. With my blue tape, the edge of my 1/4 inch foot, I will put my needle down like that. I am going to sew carefully. And my friends, this is important. Don't pull and tug and drag. You've got to let it just kind of be fed through the machine so that we don't get a bias problem. Okay? We'll get our pin out of the way. We'll keep going 1/4 inch all the way to the spot where it meets up with our other seam right about there. And once we're there, we can cut, and we're ready to do the next one. And we'll do all 4 the exact same way so that we have our mitered corners sewn together. And let me just show you, because I'm so excited for you to see this. When we open it up, we will have a perfect mitered corner. Now that we've sewn all of our mitered corners, we're going to iron them flat and get a nice finished pressed look. I press from the front side, and I begin in the middle of the border and push that out like that. When I get to the corner, I am going to grab the seam and get it to lay down flat and press it down flat. And then we get that finished mitered corner the easy way. Today, we took time to learn how to use your easy angle to create mitered corners that will make your quilt look perfect. Whether you are working on placemats with a 2-inch border, or wall hangings that have a 3-inch border, or even a quilt with a 4-inch border or a 6-inch border, all are possible when you use your easy angle. I wish you well, my friends, and I hope you continue using your easy angle.